Hello and welcome. Today we're going to explore a really powerful idea from neuroscience, the idea that you can literally build new roads inside your brain. And by doing that, you can actively change its very structure.
So, have you ever found yourself wondering why you react in a certain way? Almost on autopilot. Even when you've promised yourself you'll do things differently next time. It can feel a bit like being stuck in a really confusing, tangled road system, right? With no obvious way out. Well, to understand what's happening, we need to take a look at the brain's own road system. The key thing to grasp here is that our brain isn't fixed, not at all. It's actually constantly reshaping itself based on our experiences. And this remarkable ability to change, well, it has a name. It's called neuroplasticity. This is the scientific foundation for pretty much everything. How we learn, how we form habits, and even how we heal. So you can think of your brain as this dynamic landscape, one that you can actually help to shape. There's a core principle here that was famously summed up by the neuropsychologist Donald Hebb. He said, "Neurons that fire together, wire together." What does that mean? Well, when we repeat a thought or a behavior, the brain cells, the neurons that are involved in that pattern, they activate together. And over time, that connection between them gets stronger and stronger. And that repetition, that's what actually builds a neural pathway. Think about it. The very first time you try something new, you're essentially creating a tiny, narrow track in the wilderness. But with each repetition, it's like you're laying down another paving stone, gradually turning that little track into a wide, super efficient highway.
This idea also helps explain why some habits can be so incredibly hard to break. You see, experiences that involve really strong emotions, especially stress, can activate the brain's threat system so powerfully that these roads, they get built incredibly quickly. And what you're left with are these very fast, very automatic responses. Okay, so how does this whole construction process actually work? To really get to grips with that, we can use a brilliant framework called traffic light processing. It's a way of explaining how our internal state, how we're feeling in the moment, affects which road our brain decides to take.
So I want you to imagine you're at a junction, a crossroads, in your mind. The route you end up taking, well, it isn't always a conscious choice. Your ability to just pause, look at the map, and pick a new direction depends completely on your internal nervous system state, right in that very moment. The traffic light processing model breaks this down for us into 3 states. First, there's the green state. Here, you have high processing capacity. You can pause, think, and deliberately choose a new road. Then there's the orange state. In orange, that capacity starts to narrow, and your brain begins to default to the familiar, well-traveled routes. And finally, you have the red state. This is when the system shifts into survival mode, and it will automatically take the fastest, most established highway it can find. So what this framework really does is explain that constant balancing act going on in our brain, the one between the fast, emotional threat system and the slower, more thoughtful parts that regulate our responses. Our capacity for change, for choosing a new road, really just depends on which of those systems is in the driving seat.
Right. So let's get practical. Now that we know these states exist, how can we consciously choose to build and then travel down a new route?
Well, first things first, we have to appreciate the difference in the terrain. An established pathway, one of those old roads, is wide, it's efficient, it's automatic. It's the default route. A new pathway, on the other hand, that's like a narrow little track. It requires conscious effort, and it's going to feel much, much slower to travel at first.
The process for building a new road, it really happens when we can operate from that green state, and it involves 4 key steps. Step 1, you have to recognize the old automatic road you're about to go down. Step 2, and this bit is absolutely crucial, you have to pause, create a moment at that junction before you react. Step 3, you choose. You intentionally travel down a different road, even if it feels harder. And step 4, you repeat. That new journey has to be repeated to widen the road.
And here's something really important to remember. The aim isn't to try and demolish the old roads. The brain rarely deletes pathways completely. Instead, the real goal is to build new, healthier roads that through sheer repetition become so wide and so efficient that they become the brain's new preferred routes. So the central message in all of this is that you absolutely have the power to reshape your brain's landscape. And progress doesn't require perfection. It just requires repetition. Okay, let's just quickly summarize the key takeaways here. First, your brain isn't fixed. It's constantly changing. Second, it's repetition that turns new, effortful behaviors into automatic habits. Third, your internal state, your green, orange, or red state, determines your ability to choose a new path. And finally, real lasting change happens through small, repeated choices made at that junction, over and over again.
Just remember, every single time you pause and choose a different direction, you are physically strengthening the neural infrastructure for that new response. You're literally laying down another paving stone. So the only question that remains is, which new road will you begin to build today?